topic on the COVID impact on the economy challenges and I will start talking about the impact on global economy. What challenges the global economy matters a lot because that's the one having an impact on the rest of the world, and the impact on India challenges and the impact on Gulf and challenges. And of course, I will be briefly doing a comparison of 2008 recession versus 2020, just to let you know what to expect. And at the end of my address, I will be covering the opportunities and the sectors where we can focus for the both professionals as well as the business people. So what I request all of you to stay connected, in case if you drop out in between, you will be missing out some of the very interesting aspect of the topic. So as you know that the global pandemic COVID-19 has impacted all of us. That put the entire globe on a back foot. Billions of people have locked down. The business are forced to shut down. People are isolated because that's what the need of the are in order to maintain the social distance. But what no one is expected is that world can be changed dramatically in a short frame of time. Nobody is expected. And before I could start, I want to start my topic with explaining the type of crisis, because that will help you to understand where we are as far as 2020 crisis concerned and where we are heading it. See, there are three types of crisis I want to explain you. One is the economy slowdown, and second one is the recession, and third one is the depression. And the reason behind explaining that will help you to understand where we are as far as 2020 COVID impact crisis concerned. The economy slowdown is all about the country's GDP is declining compared to the previous fiscal years. And if you see every quarter, the GDP is performing below than the previous quarter. That means the country's economy is slowing down. And that's exactly the meaning, a true meaning of a global slowdown, an economy slowdown. What's happening, for example, in India for the last couple of years, the economy is slowing down because every quarter you get to see the GDP is dropping. That's in the true sense of economy slowdown. And what is the meaning of recession? Recession meaning if the GDP falls below negative, if declines to negative for a consecutive 2 quarters or more, that means it's a recession. Then what happened was 2008 was a recession because the global GDP has declined to a negative figure. That was the reason 2008 was considered as a great recession. And what is a depression means any GDP declines to -10 and more than 2 to 3 years, even if any crisis prolonged more than 3 to 4 years, that is called as the depression. What happened in 1930, the crisis triggered the global depression, and ever since there was no depression. The last depression, economic depression we had is 1930. Now after that there are so many recession came, but 2008 was considered as one of the deepest and the hardest recession. So now you understand the meaning of the economy slowdown, recession, and the depression. Now, let me just start with the impact on the global economies. As you all know that according to the International Monetary Fund, what they predict is that the 2020 impact is far deeper, far serious than 2008 recession, perhaps worse since 1930s depressions. Ever since the COVID outbreak took place in February, you witnessed the global economy started struggling it. USA stock market has crashed big time. USA has to pledge $2 trillion to support the economy. What was happened? The reason I'm giving you all these sequences in order to help you to understand where we are heading as far as the 2020 crisis is concerned. France has witnessed the first 3 months GDP is a negative. That means what they're trying to tell is that this is the worst performance since the Second World War. That means they're not even comparing to 2008 crisis. What they're telling the first 3 months, the performance of GDP is worse than Second World War. And as you know that European Union GDP has plunged. Then the German economy is about to shrink more than 6%. China economy has declined to record 6%, and Japan economy has plunged. I'm only referring to all these big heavyweight superpower economic countries in the world. I'm not even coming to India and the Middle East yet. These are the countries who have a large contribution in the global GDP. These are the countries who control the global economies. If these are the countries struggling because of the COVID impact, you can imagine what's going to happen in the rest of the world. Now, these all will certainly have an impact on the rest of the world, including Middle East and, of course, India as well. Now, before I could go to the Indian economy and the impact on India and challenges and the Middle East, let me give you a small comparison of 2008 and 2020. If I compare you 2020 to 1930, it doesn't make a lot of sense because we were not part of the 1930s situation. So let me compare the difference between 2008 and 2020, because we were part of 2008 crisis. We have faced those struggles. We had those hardships. We came out. So let me give you a brief difference between 2008, the recession, versus what are we going to expect in 2020. You know, unlike 2020, 2008 recession, economy were not under lockdown. Companies were not forced to shut down. People were not isolated. You know, there was a problem in the global banking were collapsed, and the global market collapsed. That triggered the the financial crisis in 2008. But that has impacted the rest of the world. As you know, that many companies have shut down, but economy were running, company were functioning. We all were working in 2008. But I'm sure everyone knows the impact in 2008. There are 1,000 people have left their car in the airport, has to leave UAE, Dubai, and many parts of the world. You're all well aware of it. But 2020 is entirely different. The challenges of COVID has brought is entirely different in 2020. What is happening is that the entire global economy is under lockdown. Companies are forced to shut down. People were isolated. And that has created a significant impact. And as I said, that it's a dramatic change worldwide. So even to compare 2008, it took nearly, I think, 1.5 years in 2008. It almost like a 520 days to hit a 56% decline on the global stock market. It took 517 days to reach that level of a decline. But whereas 2020, in just 17 days, the global stock market has dropped, as low as 30%. See the significance of the comparison. So the reason why I'm explaining you, this is only to make all of us to connect what's happening and prepare ourselves. From end of my, before closing, I'm going to certainly highlight the area that we need to focus, what are the preparation that we all need to do it. But I don't want to jump into the preparations and the focus until unless I connect to all of you what's going on, what to expect of a 2020. Even the global economists are not in a position to predict what is going to happen because a lot of uncertainty, as you all know that. So this is in a nutshell about 2008 and 2020's comparison. But now let me start with my view on the economy impact challenges in India. Similarly, 2008 and 2020. In India, 2008, the financial recession came just after the global economy boom. India were a forefront as far as the economy booming concern in 2008. India was one of the most emerging countries in 2008, and we were forefront, and we were even contributing on the global GDPs. So there was everything was working in favor of India in 2008, and even the stock market was at its peak in 2008. And without being biased to any government, even then the Prime Minister happens to be economist, and he has those abilities and he has those expertise to cope up with the recession. In fact, India is one of the first countries to bounce back the 2008 crisis. Even the International Monetary Fund then projected a 4.1 GDP growth for India in 2008 or 2009. But even India, outcasted even their own projection by outperforming 5.6 GDP growth. That shows the situation back in 2008. But 2020 is entirely different. The 2020, the global pandemic COVID-19 is not hitting after the global after economy booming. It's not that case like 2008. What was happening is that we were in the middle of economy slowdown. That's the reason, beginning of my speech, I was explaining the type of crisis, economy slowdown, the recession, and the depression. The India for the last couple of years we're struggling. The Indian economy is slowing down. As you know that, quarter after quarter, India's GDP growth is lower than the previous quarter. And even though 1 week back, the 2019's GDP fourth quarter is way out. Shockingly, the GDP's performance is far below than one forecasted. It was forecasted 4.6 GDP growth, and we hit as badly as 3.1 GDP growth. What does it mean? That we are heading in a very difficult stage to India. But COVID, you cannot make a COVID as a scapegoat for India's fourth quarter GDP for the decline for the last couple of years. India put a complete lockdown in the March onwards. I think a mid or 15 or 20 March onwards, India has put the complete lockdown. But I was referring to these GDPs declining in much before that. So that shows that where we are heading as far as India is concerned. But there are so many other sequences I would like to highlight, the challenges that India is going to face in 2020, what COVID is going to even worsen the situation for India. The only reason I'm highlighting is very, very important to connect to the reality so that we all prepare ourselves what we need to do, how we can come out. The rupees is at all-time low. You all know that. And unemployment rate is a 40% high. That is going to, even the COVID impact will worsen the situation on the unemployment rate. Food inflation rate is an all-time high. Petrol price, you all are well aware of it is impacting a lot. And, interest on deposit at 17 years low. I mean, that's another problem that banking are facing in India. And bank credit growth is at 15 years low. One of the reasons why for the last couple of years, many banks were taking, they're merging because of, not just because of some of the scam or the people have, has taken the monies and become a defaulter. Apart from that, there are a lot of other aspects is putting a lot of stress on Indian banking sector that is also impacting a lot on the Indian economy. That eventually is going to put a lot of challenges on the citizen, on the people, on all of us. And another very challenging thing is that what I wanted to highlight. The 3 days back, Moody's report were out. I think this is really very disturbing to know that Moody's has downgraded India's status. I think this is India's rating first time in 22 years. What does it mean? Since 2 decades, India's rate is downgraded to that level. Moody's report is not just a student report. What happens if a student comes to home and if he has a failed, it is only impacting him. That report is only impacting him. It doesn't impact the entire school or university. But this is not just a report. One shouldn't just take it as a report. This is going to impact the overall economy because that shows India's economy status has downgraded. I will put a lot of, the confidence will degrade as far as the investment concerned. The foreign companies will think twice before putting money. Investor will try to pull off because when nobody wants to put their money when you have a downgrade status. But the COVID is even further impacting the Indian situation. The last week, the All India Manufacturing Association done a survey, and according to their survey, 1 in 3 businesses in the process of winding off. That is a SME segment, which is a small and medium enterprises are in the process of winding off. What does it mean? That it means nearly 10 to 11 crore people will be affected directly or indirectly. And this is the impact challenges that COVID has brought to India. And agriculture is going to continue struggling in India. Indian agricultures contribute $265 billion. As you know, that's the largest contribution to the Indian GDP. India's 50 to 60% of the workforce are involved directly or indirectly in agriculture. See, the COVID will bring a lot of challenges to Indian agriculture and the workforce. And Indian real estate is already struggling. You're all aware of it. But what is the COVID impact is going to bring back the challenges on the Indian real estate is that a lot of commercial sector now will start, encouraging the work from home kind of a culture. I know India is not as equipped as Gulf because of the lack of infrastructure, but at metro cities, urban areas, they can afford having a working from home. What is going to happen when you have a work from home? That is going to put a lot of pressure on the commercial real estate. And every company wants to save money. They don't want to, acquire or, occupy 2 or 3 floors when they can see their people can work from home. By the way, working from home has brought a lot of efficiency and productivity, and this is going to be a new normal going forward. That's going to the impact of COVID-19, and retail sector will continue to struggle. Whether it's in India or in the Middle East and global, because of this is a health emergency. Nobody wants to go out unless you know that you have the solution, and the solution is nothing but finding the vaccine. Of course, social distance will be there, but I don't think so. You want to take your family out, and there's another reason also why I tell you retail sector will struggle, because when you have this kind of a crisis, human tendency, nobody wants to spend money, and I'm sure it goes without saying. Even all of us, we think twice before spending money. We wanted to save money, thinking of the uncertainty that is going to put a lot of pressure on the retail sector. Banking is, anyway, as I mentioned, it's continued to struggle in India. Automobile industries and many manufacturing industry will suffer. What does it mean in considering all these factors in India, that in India is going to have a huge challenges? Even people working in Gulf, we are part of India. This is also is not an encouraging things for anybody else. This is as far as the COVID impact is concerned. I'm trying to quickly wrap it up the segment wise, so that we can spend more time on the question and answer, or maybe interactive session. Now let me come back to the Gulf. I have highlighted briefly about global economy and impact, and also in a nutshell, I tried to highlight about the challenges and impact on India, and being very realistic. And I'm sure you don't need to be an economist to understand. Any sensible person will understand looking at the situation and the sequences. Now, let me talk about the impact on Gulf, right? Any other countries, Gulf is quite different, to be very honest. Most of the countries are facing one negative shock. That is the global pandemic, the COVID-19, that shock. But Gulf is facing a twin shock, not just a one shock. Of course, like any other countries, Gulf is facing COVID tragedy, 19 tragedy. And apart from that, Gulf is facing another negative shock, is the declining the oil price. Gulf is not Gulf doesn't have a diversified economy. The most of the GCC countries' GDP is driven by the oil. An exception to Dubai, that's the one Emirates among the entire United Arab Emirates. Of course, Dubai has a diversified economy. Dubai also has its own challenges because of the the COVID impact. But the rest of the GCC countries, some of the biggest oil producing countries like Saudi, Kuwait, or Qatar, will have a major challenges because of the oil price, declining the oil price. The two reasons I see a decline in the oil price, of course, disruption in the global supply chain, no demand, the entire global economy is put on hold, and when there is nothing moving, manufacturing company industries are not functioning. Of course, there is no demand for oil. But there's another reason why not many are aware. There is a disagreement between the two biggest oil producing countries in the world. One is Saudi, another one is Russia. They couldn't agree on limiting the production so that they can maintain the price. Due to that trigger, recently a crash in the oil price in the global market. Never in the history has a global stock market has witnessed the minus negative for oil price. But what the economist predicts, as far as the Gulf concerned, if the oil rate $20 per barrel remain for the remaining year, the Gulf Council country is going to lose $555 million per day, not per month, per day. What does it mean? That means a huge challenges if this is going to continue in the rest of the years. Similar like any other part of the world, the Gulf is facing a lot of challenges in the airline industries. Let's not forget, Gulf produce some of the biggest airline industry in the world. Name it from Etihad Airways, Emirates Airline, Qatar Airways, Saudi Airlines, Gulf Air from Bahrain. These are biggest in the world. And the entire airline industry is grounded. Of course, they just started resuming, but that's on the limited scope. Now, this is going to impact a lot in the Gulf, and tourism industry will have a huge impact in the Gulf. There are two countries will face a lot of challenges. One is Dubai. As you all know, that Dubai is a global destination as far as the tourism concerned. There's another country is going to face a challenge is Saudi. Saudi, attracts millions of visitors every year for Umrah and Hajj, right? So that is going to impact this year. And retail sector, like any other countries, Gulf will face a huge challenge, retail sector. And consumer market will continue struggling it because of the COVID reason. I said, 2008 is quite different compared to 2020. 2008 was not forced to shut down, and but 2020, even still, many part of the GCC hasn't taken completely eased out the lockdown. It's still partially started easing out the lockdown, and hotels and the restaurants are in a complete in a devastated position. Some of the part of the GCC, because of the current situation, many restaurants are in the verge of closing down for forever or permanently. And banking sector, even though much healthier compared to India, but will struggle in the sense because lack of deposit, and people are trying to pull off the cash, because everyone will fear, right? When you have a crisis, you have those fear, what's going to happen. So everybody will act on it, because somebody's act will have a reaction on the other part of the sector also. And this is another area is going to struggle, is a free zone in Gulf. Gulf holds some of the big multinational company in the world, and they have some of the big manufacturing and also warehouses. Supply chain has disrupted. The manufacturing companies under complete lockdown. This is going to impact a lot. And the SME sector, has a large contribution put together in GCC on the GDP growth as well. What is so unfortunate that the most of the Indian expatriates are working in an SME sector. You don't face this challenge as far as the local citizen concerned. They are, being placed well in the government sector, but when it comes to the corporate sector, SME sector, this is what the expatriates is going to struggle a lot. And IMF, International Monetary Fund, has projected for the Middle East and the Central Asia is a minus 2.8 GDP growth. That's not so healthy. That's not so encouraging as far as 2020 GDP is concerned. And of course, this is just a projection. And you know that Gulf has a vision 2030. Saudi has a 2030 vision. Qatar has a 2030 vision. UAE has a 2030 vision. Kuwait has a 2035 vision. The vision is all about diversifying the economy. Gulf don't want to just depend completely on oil and gas. And also there is another drive to convert the country into a vibrant mode. So perhaps that's the reason all the countries having a 2030 vision. But this vision need to relook at it. Post-COVID will certainly bringing a lot of changes. The industry will not have the same approach which has the pre-COVID. Business approach will change. The deglobalization is going to take place. I'll talk to you later what is deglobalization is all about. And deglobalization also will trigger to relook at the vision, and then perhaps maybe extend the vision 2030 to 2035. But that's kind of an impact this global pandemic COVID has brought all of us. And recently the survey is done in Dubai Chamber, and they have interviewed nearly close to 1,000 chief executive officers who has companies less than 20 employees. That means they are managing SME sector. They extended their fear, saying that 60 to 70% they will run out of business. They'll go out of the business. This is a survey. This is a sentiment. Not necessarily has to be a fact, because most of the time when you have a crisis, when you have a situation, the sentiments play the key role. And a survey not necessarily that always proved to be right, but it's important to understand that what even consumer or what even the SME segment is looking at. Apart from that, something on a positive side as far as the Gulf concerned compared to India is, Gulf is far ahead in terms of infrastructure, in terms of the resources. They have a far equipped than the rest of the countries. World Health Organization, as you all know, the first to appreciate and applaud Gulf leadership for containing the virus. And Kuwait was the first to lock down, followed by many other GCC countries. Now, what happened is that even when it comes to taking some, very, very proactive steps, like UAE, ranked as a #1 in the world as far as the test concern per million. I mean, this is unbelievable. Look at some of the most advanced country in the world, but where Gulf is shown that they are here to come out from this tragedy. Even 2008 also, Gulf has come back like never before, and working in this part of the world nearly 20 to 27 years, and I'm very sure about Gulf will come back strongly. But of course, it is not as simple as 2008, because as I explained to you about the situation and the scenarios, and Gulf, of course, have a visionary leadership. But at the same time, the good part about the Gulf Council countries put together has pledged $120 billion to support the economy. Saudi has announced 32 billion, Oman, UAE 34 billion, Oman 20 billion, Bahrain $11 billion, Kuwait $1.5 billion, Qatar $20 billion. I mean, these are the government to support the economy, support the business sector, corporate sector, banking sector, and to make sure that they come out from this thing. So looking at all these things, of course, we will have a challenge. Most probably, we will definitely going to face hardship, but at the same time, we have to be very optimistic, looking at the previous experience of Gulf. Now, let me just briefly explain you the industries that's been affected and what are the industries been gained. Every crisis brings the opportunity, but also brings some kind of a disaster. That's why we always say an opportunity and the crisis does bring an opportunity. But let me highlight you the sector has been hardly hit. Airline industries expected to lose $113 billion worldwide. Many economists says that some of the large airline industries worldwide is going to be bankrupted in worldwide. And then hospital industries are struggling, and particularly in UAE and Saudi will struggle big time because they attract a lot of visitors. Logistic industries has taken a huge hit because of the COVID-19, because of the disruption in the global supply chain. Oil industries, of course, lack of demand and also decline in the price that is affected so badly. Retail sector, like any other countries, Middle East or the rest of the world, even India, real estate will continue to struggle, and more than anywhere else, Gulf has to face the commercial real estate, because as I said, Gulf is far ahead in terms of the equipment, in terms of the infrastructure, and technically, technology-wise, Gulf is far ahead compared to India. So today, Gulf, especially UAE and some of the other GCC countries, quickly adopted to work from the home because of the infrastructure. Business where, as usual, even though not many sectors, but some of the sectors, no one experienced a problem with the government sector. Government sector was functioning as smooth as before, even in fact more seamless than and the pre-COVID, because everything is in a finger touch. So, but commercial real estate will take a big hit. A reason why many corporate company will reassess their approach. You don't need to occupy 7 floors, 10 floors, where you can get a best efficiency working from home. You can save a lot of costs. They can optimize the OPEX, transport costs, allowances, parking, rent, electricity. This is will put a lot of pressure on the commercial real estate. Global tourism has taken a huge hit, as you know, and some of the countries, like their GDP is completely driven by the tourism, like Greece and Spain. In 2008 crisis, Greece took nearly a decade to revert back. Of course, back in India, fisheries industries will face some problem because of the lockdown. But once the lockdown is out, fisheries industry will take normal. But then global supply chain will have some kind of a pressure on the export level also, and then hotels and restaurants are struggling it. Those are on the hardship. But let me talk about which are the sectors are gaining, who are actually making best out of this COVID impact. Health sector is something is really gaining worldwide. The reason why the COVID is a health emergency, everybody is rushing towards the hospital. So that means anything connected to the health sector, whether it is a pharma, medical company, medical tools, you name it, everything pertaining to the health sector are gaining. Their stock market is up booming. If any professionals are watching me or listening to me, if you are looking for any opportunities coming up, keep your eyes open in the health sector. And there's another industries is booming is the technology, especially on the video conferencing. No one ever thought of it. We will be connecting in this seamlessly through Zoom, video conferencing, whether it's a WebEx or Microsoft Team. And Zoom has boomed their business. They never expected. As of today, I think 200 million users are connected to Zoom. And this is the industry is gaining a lot. Cloud services are gaining, and I will talk about the cloud services a little bit later. But cloud services has enabled working from home. That has made the remote access. That has made the education sectors to work e-classes and all supported them. Especially cloud services provided by Microsoft, AWS, IBM, and Oracle. These are the major cloud players in the world are gaining it. It's another industry is making huge out of it is Netflix and Amazon, because when you put billions of people under lockdown and they are forced to use the Netflix, and I mean, of course, maybe we as a community will not look lot into Netflix, but we are nothing compared to the world populations. And Netflix making huge out of it, and Amazon. And another sector is that making it is a telecommunication, especially broadband service provider, because everyone is remotely has to depending on the telecommunications, and they are looking into much better. E-learning has taken a significant growth. A lot of online tuitions, course, a lot of online training companies are popped up because they're making huge out of it. So many global prestigious university likes of Harvard, Oxford, and all started coming up with the huge and very innovative training modules. Hygienic products are gaining it, pertaining to that companies. By the way, there's another mechanism is making out of it, a delivery mechanism, even though there was a lockdown, but still a necessity has to be delivered. During the COVID outbreak in Wuhan in China, Alibaba's delivery mechanism has played a major role in supply chain. So there's another area is making out of it is a delivery mechanism. When Dubai started easing out the lockdown, when they're asked to open the fine dine restaurant never used to be a home delivery. Now they started connecting to the Uber and Zomato because they needed the delivery mechanism. So they are gaining it at this moment. And home entertainment is at booming sector. And online gaming is another sector is making huge out of it. So many stocks related to the online gaming are booming. And another industries is making it is the software industries, because many companies rushing it. Majority company are not prepared for it, especially some part of GCC and the majority in India. So they have to rush support from the software industries or software companies to create and enable for them to make some basic online access. So software industry is booming. If any professional are keen exploring, they can look at software industry. So whatever the industry that I mentioned about gaining, and these are the industries where professionals need to look at it. These are the department sectors where hitting badly and as well as gaining it. Now, let me touch base with the expatriates condition in Gulf and also in India and globally. What happens is that when you have challenges, when the company is closing down, obviously the people have to lose job. There are salary cut. There are jobs that's been laid off. It happened even 2008, but I think the impact in 2020 will be far severe, and that's why we are communicating with each other. I was just talking just before with my close friend and brother Mohammed Mansoor from Bahrain. He was telling that this is the need of the hour, because social responsibility is there, supporting food, and that is the need of the hour. But that's a temporary problem. One need to support the human workforce for everybody, because this is the survival factor. So the objective of today is to understand, to connect you what's happening, so how you can really well prepare it. Job cut and will with that fear will be there always. And I don't want to name the companies who have laid on so many. That's not an intention of naming any company, but that's the situation. That's the realities. But recently I never heard in my life, neither experience, the Uber human resources head came on Zoom online and announcing that 3,000 people, tomorrow you will be your last working day. The pain, I never experienced such things. You hear from the print media, maybe somewhere here in news, but coming on the Zoom live and announcing that 3,000 people will be laid off, and that's kind of a pain and challenges, and that will be there, whether it's the airline industry, retail sector, consumer market, when all industries that got affected will have that impact for sure. But what we need to do is really prepare ourselves and see what we can do the best. And the next my topic, I will explain you which area one need to upscale or reskill their skill in order to be equipped to grab an opportunities post COVID. And finally, I just tell you with regard in the world losing a job. That means 1 billion workers in the world either salary cut or may lose job. That means 2.7 billion works may impact it directly or indirectly, and that is the kind of impact that COVID is going to bring it in front of all of us. And unfortunately, we don't have a payroll policy. We don't have a payroll law in here. Some of the European countries has a payroll protection. If their citizen, in case of having a problem in the company, their employees can remain as an employees, and the company will pay their normal wages, but the government is going to reimburse. This is a great policies in the European, some of the European countries, because they have a very less unemployment rate. And in US also, you heard a citizen can file unemployment for a benefit, but in Gulf you can't expect. It's not our fundamental rights, because we are not a citizen here. We are an expatriates. But Indians also cannot expect, because India anyway is struggling big time with the unemployment rate. Neither we have any payroll protection policies. So this is in a nutshell about what to expect, what are the situation worldwide as far as the labor force and the job and salary cut concern. Now, there will be one question in everybody's mind, is that when this recession is going to end, when you think that's going to recovery, and when you expect, right? You understand the global challenges, Indian challenges, Gulf industries, and I've tried to brief you in a nutshell all about, and I'm able to connect you in a reality world. Now, let me tell you, like as I said, there are three type of the financial crisis, as I mentioned, global slowdown, recession, and depression. Similarly, there is a three type of recovery you can expect. There is a V-shaped recovery, another one is a U-shaped recovery, and third one is a L-shaped recovery. What is a V-shaped recovery? V-shaped recovery is you can see it is a sudden crash, and there's an immediate recovery. It's like in a V-shape. The curve is like in a V-shape. The crash and then immediate recovery. And what is a U-shaped recovery? You have a crash in the global economy, and then it's going to take some more time to bounce back in a U-shaped curve. And the L-shape is something is far deeper than the recession. It's going to crash and going to remain for a longest time. Something what happened in 1930s Great Depression that took really decades to bounce back. Now, to answering the question whether it's a V-shaped recovery, U-shaped recovery, or L-shaped recovery, forget about me or anybody else. Even the global economy is not in a position to predict. The reason why, a lot of uncertainty as far as the economy is concerned. I want to refer one economist, someone we all admire, and I personally admire and respect. One of the most admired economists, highly proclaimed worldwide, is the Professor Raghuram Rajan. And, when he was asked a week back what he expect the recovery, he said, I'm not in a position. It's a lot of uncertainty. The reason why, because it's a health emergency. Unless you find the vaccine, you clearly cannot say when we're going to recover, in which shape recovery. Even though he reject completely the L-shaped recovery, we don't want to even imagine that L-shaped recovery, but there is no way, even I don't think there's a V-shaped recovery, but certainly it's going to be a U-shaped recovery. It's just an assumption. But what Professor Raghuram Rajan says that unless you don't find the vaccine, expecting maybe October, November, December, not sure. And because economy may start resuming it, but still there will be a panic. There will be a threat. I tell you what happened in the mother of all pandemics, Spanish flu, took 100 years back. the second wave of that Spanish flu has killed more than the first wave. 50 million people have died in the Spanish flu. So this is the corona pandemic is the same magnitude what the Spanish flu has brought in 100 years ago. So therefore, there is a concern on the global economy until unless you cannot find the vaccines. One cannot predict. But of course, the post-COVID industry is going to redefine their approach. The business approach will not be the same. There have to be relook at the reapproach as far as business concerned. This is an idea of a nutshell with regards to the recovery and what you expect. As far as the global projection concerned, in line with the recovery, 2020, keeping COVID impact in mind, a global economy is going to hit -3, which is far severe than 2008 recession. So let's not forget that one. Advanced countries going to hit 6.1 negative. Advanced countries referring to Japan, Germany, USA, all this put together. These are the most advanced countries, some of the European countries. And emerging markets is going to hit just -1. Emerging markets, talking about India, some of the China is part of the emerging market. They haven't even fully advanced. And then these are the 2020. But let's take on the optimistic side of a 2021. The 2021, what IMF, International Monetary Fund, is projecting is that a global economy will be growing at 5.8% as far as the global economy is concerned. And that is from the negative from 3 to growing to 5.8% in 2021. And the advanced economy will grow 4.5%. And emerging market, including the Gulf and India, is going to grow at 6.6 from the -1. And these are the optimistic side. But let's say 2021 still far ahead compared to 2020. It's all about how we can prepare ourselves for a 2020. And the two countries, it's worth mentioning here, has a large contribution on the global GDP. Not many knows. USA and China put together contribute to nearly 40 to 50% of the global GDP. USA has close to 20 to 25% global GDP, and China has contributing to 14%. And what this says that there is a lesson that we all have learned. Every country has learned because of COVID is a dependency on the other countries. China is a world factory. Supply chain disrupted because of the virus outbreak. That has put a massive disruption in the entire globe. One of the reasons why it's not just because of the in-country lockdown, but also lack of supply demand. So this will change. Deglobalization is going to take place. If you remember, even the pre-COVID, there was a policy, US President Donald Trump wanted to implement deglobalization. You want to cut down the import to the extent you want to create a lot of domestic productions, the factories and all. Now what happened because of the COVID will certainly accelerate the deglobalization. Deglobalization is good for some countries, and I take it is a very good advantage for India for deglobalization. And Gulf will face a lot of challenges because a lot of Gulf is depending on a lot of import, apart from being the biggest exporter in oil. So even the Gulf 2030 vision includes the deglobalization factor, a lot of in-country. That's why they're looking for a diversified economy. Who's gaining at this moment because of the COVID and as far as the country concerned, the countries like Vietnam, Indonesia, and Bangladesh are gaining it because so many factories in China are relocating to these countries. All the garment sector are moving to Bangladesh. The electronics manufacturer companies are moving to Vietnam. And the manufacturing companies are moving to Malaysia and Indonesia. These are the companies. Actually, even the as part of the deglobalization is already taking place, but the COVID impact will accelerate it all. Nobody want to depend on the world factory of China. Impact is going to face. And now, I think I've covered almost the challenges, impact, the sectors, and everything. Now, let me start with the last piece of my topic is the opportunities, and I want here to cover two aspects of the opportunity. One for the professionals, another one is for the business people. My intention is to highlight the opportunities, keeping only COVID impact in mind, and the post-COVID, which are the sectors are in a position to hire people. I don't want to generalize here because that's not going to help anybody. I want to be very specific, even on the business ideas. Also, I don't want to talk about, setting up an industries. That is not an intention. I wanted even to give an idea of it, a very feasible, so that a professional can think about moving to a business. A business guy can think about doing something which is less capital and feasible, and also keeping the demand in the market post-COVID. Now let's talk about for the professionals. Now post-COVID will bring huge challenge for the human resource and the workforce, because they're not going to look for the same skill that the pre-COVID era had, because the industry approach will change. A lot of companies going to look for a high-skilled employees, and who can adapt the situation, can manage the multitask. And as part of the COVID impact, so many companies going to be a digitalization, automation is going to take place. That will downsize some of the manual workforce. So they're going to look for a multitask. So what we need to do for all the professionals who are listening to me, you need to upgrade your skills. Now what happened 10 years ago or 5 years ago, if you really wanted to upgrade your skills, you need to walk into an institute, training center physically. I mean, that's not the case now. A lot of flexibility you have. You got your space, you got your speed, you got your time, and very, very small minimum fee. You can learn a lot of skills. You can learn, so you can upgrade a lot of skills. If you're an accountant, don't just stick to being an accountant. Learn, upgrade your skills, because maybe you're getting another opportunity to move towards a different professions. That's what you need to look at it. I can give you a lot of free courses. You can get it in YouTube. So many very highly recognized institute, a global institute, even some of the big institutes are coming and offering you very attractive, learning courses for you guys. So the professional now seriously need to look at upgrading your skills, because post-COVID will impact a lot of challenges on an existing skill. And there's another area for a professional that you can focus on if you're looking for a job, look at a job where in a cloud industries like Microsoft, like AWS, like the IBM. Particularly, I'm referring to the Microsoft and AWS, because a couple of years back, when anybody wants to connect the cloud from the Middle East, used to take the traffic to Europe. But for the last couple of years, what happened? The cloud player, the biggest player like a Microsoft, AWS, have set up their edge node in the region. In UAE, they have an edge node. In Bahrain, AWS set up their edge node. So what does it mean? That every small or large corporate company post-COVID has to look for a cloud services. Cloud services will help you to not only mitigate your cost, but also will help you to transform your company to in a digital world. So that means these are the industries going to create a lot of job opportunity for you. You got a lot of demand in the sales industry as far as this cloud company concerned. They are even giving you a lot of training, the AWS selling skill related to their product, and it is available for a free as well as a small minimum fee. Most of the cloud players are offering free because they want to enable the workforce. So you have to just what you need to do, learn those skills, redefine and restructure your profile so that you're not just limiting with your one skill. So this is a piece of advice I wanted to give to all of you. And another area that you can learn, coding, animation, you need to learn. This is very, very important. Selling skill will change. It's not going to be a face-to-face selling post-COVID. Of course, that will continue to be there, but a lot of offshore selling will take place, and outbound sales is going to take a big boom because people want to sales on the outbound. So you can learn a lot of skill on the outbound. Digital marketing and the social media management. And I want to tell your professionals, please focus on learning something on the digital marketing. Post-COVID is going to revolution on the digitalization. Many companies are forced to digitalizing their structure, their approach. So this will create a lot of job opportunity for you. So learn something, the digital marketing and the social media management, because many companies will hire someone who can effectively handle the social media management and virtual project management. See, something as part of the gig economy, so many company will look for a temporary basis project managers. They don't going to hire on a contractual basis, the case by case based on the project. So you got a lot of scope to handle the project. So something learn from learn a project management. Everything is available, and when you wanted to reach out some specific, I'm reachable after this anytime through me or through HIF Qatar. And another area I want you to focus on the copywriting. Copywriting is $1 billion company worldwide, but in the Middle East or India, we're not well aware of the copywriting. Copywriting is not something you're going to write the script. Copywriting, you don't need to be a writer. Copywriting, you need to have an understanding on the consumer, understanding on the little bit on the market. Then you can. There are courses you can learn copywriting. Copywriting is all about making sure that you define the company product, you define the company's values, and communicate with the consumer market. So you are just writing on behalf of the companies. So this is going to help a lot. The huge scope on the copywriting and team management. Company is going to hire a team management. They don't want to have their own in-house team management, but they will look for a high-skilled one. They don't just look for someone a team management. Maybe somebody is with. They're going to look multitask. That's the reason it's very important to upgrade your skills and don't just limit to one particular skills. And I want to take this opportunity to highlight all the people, or the parents and the professional. If you are watching me, I want you to guide your children's or your sister or brothers going forward. Try to focus on the machine learning, artificial intelligence, big data, and data scientists. This is very, very important. Even before the COVID impact, there was a transition period of moving towards that era. And 2030, the global workforce will be laid off 30% because the automation will take place. So therefore, please encourage them. There's no much demand, to be very honest, for becoming a normal doctor going forward. Even the doctor has to roll up to depending on the technology. A lot of work what doctor is currently doing will be replaced by the artificial intelligence, will be robotics. So encourage your the next generation to look for these kind of an area. So these are in a nutshell where I want the professionals to highlight. I'm reachable even anytime you want to reach me in order to any kind of a guidance you require. Now the last piece of my address with regards to some of the business ideas that I want to touch base here. As I said, that I'm not going to talk about setting up an industry. That's not the intention here. I want to highlight here about very feasible, a simple, keeping COVID impact in mind, keeping the post-COVID impact in mind. And I want to talk about briefly on the startup here. Not many aware what is the concept of startup. I want to highlight to you the concept of startup company. Startup means not an individual who's taking an initiative and setting up a company. That does not mean startup. The true meaning of startup companies is a group of people getting together, taking an initiative to solve the problem by creating a product. What does it exactly means? That if you think that you got the like-minded people, you can get together, think about a solution. As I mentioned, every crisis brings an opportunity. I'm sure COVID-19 has brought a lot of opportunities because it's a crisis. When you're a crisis, there was a problem. If there is a problem, what I can do in order to solve that problem. You take every successful startup companies from the Amazon to the Flipkart to the Careem to the Uber to the Booking.com to the Beiju.com. They have formed for a reason. They just didn't become a successful startup company just like that. There was a reason behind the formation of those companies because they see there was a problem and they thought that their product would solve the problem. Similarly, you have to now analyze what problem this COVID is bringing. And I can give you a couple of ideas of what I think very simple way. For example, the e-commerce is going to take a huge boom post-COVID. And even currently, that a lot of companies have started pushing their product through e-commerce. And I will refer to you some of the big companies we never even thought of pushing their product through e-commerce. like of the Carrefour, right? Nobody ever thought of Carrefour is pushing their hypermarket product through e-commerce, because they are forced to do it, because they see people are stop coming, people are less coming. So the only way you can sell your product to a buyer. So similarly, you have to create an e-store. Let me give you a couple of ideas and tips. If you think that e-store, create an e-store. Don't duplicate what Amazon, Flipkart is doing it. Try to do under e-commerce in a different way. Create an e-store. For example, a very popular 10 store in your particular area. Create those e-store in your e-commerce and connect that to a consumer market. It's a win-win situation for a e-store, the store owners, and also you trying to bring the entire store to a doorstep of a buyer. So that means you are creating one good opportunity. There's another opportunity. I'm just trying to be little unique, not same following the other e-commerce platform. Like create a street shopping. In so many places area known for a street. We go for certain street because that street has a specialty. Every GCC has certain street, provides certain specialty of the services or product. And for example, in Mangalore, you have a Caves Road, Kankanadi, Balmada. I know those are the areas known for some specialty. Create a street kind of a e-commerce platform so that you are bringing the entire street product right in front of somebody's doorstep. And why they have to step out during crisis time, even the post-crisis time, why they have to drive through and finding the parking problem where you can bring the entire street market to a doorstep. That's a great idea. You don't have to invest significant amount. With a small capital, you can really create a very successful venture. These are the things one can look at it. Why not you create a mall in your e-commerce? Have you anyone thought of creating a mall? For example, you can't name the mall because no mall will allow you to name a mall name, but you have all the legality to create a mall. For example, in a city center, right? So you create a city center mall, but you can't name city center unless you get an approval from the city center owners. But you can create a mall in your virtual as a virtual mall. Everything you can find in the mall shop, you can replicate that in your e-commerce. But of course, you have a contract with the store people. The store people. It's good for the store people because you are actually helping them to get the business. Any kind of a discount the store has in the mall, that will pop up in your e-mall. So this is a great idea if you really want to think of it. See, I'm giving a very simple, reasonable, keeping the post-COVID impact. And there's another area where you can really focus is the white, white painting. Is like you're talking about white labeling. You can design whatever design you wanted in the dress industries or and then you can create your own design and all. This is one area also. See, these are the subjects that I've been talking about required. It's nearly an hour to explain detail, but I can only give an idea. But later on, if you need any input detail, I'm more than happy to guide you. There's another area that you really wanted to focus because of the COVID impact, and that is the cloud kitchen. Cloud kitchen will have a huge demand. Even the cloud kitchen has some kind of a demand pre-COVID, but post-COVID will trigger big time. Because do you think you're going to take your family for a restaurant for the next one year? Do you think that unless you are absolutely sure of having a vaccine and your family is safe, and even though there is a social distance, but you think you're going to take your family for a fine dining? I doubt, because you don't want to put your loved ones. So what do you need to do? There is a demand for, of course, there's a demand for restaurants, home delivery, but why can't you create a cloud kitchen? Cloud kitchen has its own uniqueness. So this is a one area you really can look into. Cloud kitchen will certainly have a huge demand, and you don't need to have a huge investment on that. Think about it. And the smart delivery will have another opportunities, because a lot of delivery mechanism will come in place post-COVID, even the current scenario also. I know there are some of the delivery people are gaining it. Why can't you create your own delivery mechanism? Tie up with the supermarket, tie up with the stores, tie up with any supplier, and then create this venture. But look for a startup venture, because you don't want to burden everything on your shoulder. So it's always good to get the group of people taking initiative. Collective business approach is very important. If we have a collective business approach with the 4 values: trust, honesty, sincerity, and respect. If you build your collective business approach based on these values, nothing will go wrong, because this is what needed. And there are so many other things. Online training is another area that you can explore it. And distance learning. Distance learning is a huge demand now. So much of global the universities trying to provide courses, but they're only doing it online. Why can't you set up their representative in GCC or in India and try to explore this one? Huge demand for that area. Why can't you also explore in Islamic e-studies? There is one area we always have a challenges, because traditional education taking a lot of time of our children. So we don't have, we have a problem sending our girls also to outside. So most of the time we're trying to invite ustads to our home, trying to give those Islamic education. Why can't we create a Islamic portal where it can bridge the best effective the teachers, and then make this as a very feasible. It's going to be a win-win situation. You're going to also use it as a commercial, but at the same time, of course, you're going to contribute to the society also. And then digital marketing, something that if you really want us to set up a digital company, this is the time post-COVID, because every company has to embrace digitalization post-COVID. Most of the company in India, or some of the company in GCC were not able to cope up with this situation, and they took more time to adapt because they didn't digitalize their companies. There was a less automations. If you guys need any help digitalizing your company, you want to create a small website also at the beginning of a digitalization, I can connect you some of the people that I know. I know someone who is creating a website. It's just for 1 dirhams, and he can be a great consultant. He's a part of our communities. His intention also to help you guys. If you think any entrepreneurs now, any companies, you think you wanted to move for a digitalization, or you wanted to set up a digitalization company, you want some guidance and help, I can put you through a right people to help you guys. And I don't want to talk about creating a mask and medical supply. Everybody is now jumping into doing that. So I could have simply said that, why can't you start a mask? And now, initially there was a lack of demand. Now everybody asking, I have a tons of cartoon mask. Is there any need? Every country now started creating their own in-countries factories. I don't want to talk about that. I want to be very realistic, simple, so that it is doable for all of you. Another area you can talk about is the cleaning services. Post-COVID has created a lot of need for a cleaning services. If you can set up cleaning services, setting up 10 people of cleaning and create an e-portal, and then and make a small venture out of it. So this is basically in a nutshell about the opportunity that one can look at it. A lot of demand in the gig economy is going to come in. I'm just going to wrap it up before moving on to the question and answer session. So all I want to tell you, at this moment, I'm available anytime if needed for me to give you on a specific detail on the subject that I highlighted, because some of the subject I need maybe an hour to discuss, but this is not the time. I got the time constraints and I have to cover the maximum with a short frame of time. All I wanted to tell you as before going to the question and answer, failing to plan is planning to fail. This is what the message I would like to give you is: failing to plan is planning to fail. What does it mean? Does it mean that if you do not plan, that means by default you're making yourself to fail? You may think, I'm not doing anything. Why you think that I am failing? Because the situation in such a way, the COVID will push you through in that era. So that means you need to prepare yourself. If you're a professional, prepare yourself to upgrading your skill, look for an alternative professions, learn something that if you wanted to start up, you got those opportunities, a lot of opportunities there post-COVID. You need to take it. So all I want to tell you that successful people are who can predict the future and prepare for it. Successful people are those who can predict the future and prepare for it, and world will be back on track. And the question, are you prepared for it, or you want to left behind? the question is completely lies on you. If you prepare yourself, certainly you will be back on track. So with this, I would like to conclude my address with all the topics that I tried my level best to cover. And I want to move on to hand off to Fahim for a Qatar.